Hey YouTube, Ed here. We're back. Today we're going to do a session on how to do some decorative wrapping. We're going to do some trim bands, and we are going to do what's called a Trelikes Olive Branch. It was a technique developed by Jim Trelikes. So I will relocate the camera and we'll get right after it. Okay. So here we are. We got our rod blank. Right here I'm going to utilize a white rod with a black thread for visibility purposes. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you three different variations of a trim band, and a trim band is just a contrasting color to the thread that you're using to give it a little bit of visual interest. So with that, let's just get right into it. Here's my black thread. Now to start off butt work, to decorative butt wrapping, it's no different than starting off for a guide. Just take and wrap it around once, cross the first one over, get it locked down. There it is. Now I got two of them on there, three of them. Okay, now I'm locked down. I'm going to take my burnishing tool and I'm going to push everything over and get rid of the gaps, like so. Okay, so we've got a good start. There it is. Now the first way that I'm going to do this is the way that I personally like doing trim bands. I like doing trim bands like this because it's very, very easy. It looks nice. There's minimal waste of the thread, and these, thread's not terribly expensive, but we don't want to be wasteful at the same time. So what I do at this point is, I know I'm going to want a trim band here in the next few wraps, so that I'm going to take a piece of silver and I'm going to insert it right here, and I'm going to wrap it over the silver a couple of times. And yeah, I know there's a big tag sticking out of there. That's alright, we'll get that taken care of. So now we get to this point. Let's snip that off. Now you could see, or maybe you can't, but hopefully you can, right there. See if I can get that on the camera for you. Right there, there's a little silver sticking through. All you do is you take this and you give it a little tug and pull it through and get rid of that little end there. That's all there is to it. Push it over, get rid of those gaps. Okay, now I want to put my trim band here. So I've got my silver thread in place. Let's do one more wrap just for GP. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I got one wrap of silver, two wraps of silver, three wraps of silver. Now after that third wrap, I'm just going to do with three wraps. Take your tool and push everything over, get rid of those gaps. Now you take the silver thread right here, that silver thread, and you bring it underneath the black, like so, and then you pull that black with the silver thread, you pull the black over right there, so the black lines up on the other side of the silver. That's all there is to it. And get rid of some of this excess so it's a little easier to handle. Push that over. There you go. There you have a trim band. Now, some people don't like this version of the trim band, and they don't like this version of the trim band simply because right here you can see the black thread crosses over the silver, and it doesn't make a perfectly clean finish right there. That one little black thread on the bottom side of the rod, if you are careful on where you start and stop these things, that one little black thread, it doesn't bother me at all, and I don't seem to have a problem with that. Some people do, and that's fine, but overall, here's the top of the rod, the part that you can see. It's a nice clean finish on that trim band. And right there you can see the little black line that crosses over the silver right there. So at any rate, some people don't like that, and that's fine. It's all in what your taste is and what you prefer. And if you don't like that, then there are other ways to make a trim band, and I am going to show you those ways. That little black crossover line will not be a concern. And the way to do that is you, at this point now, I'm just going to continue on. I'm not going to cut the thread and finish it off. I'm just going to do three trim bands in a row so you can see them. So at this point, I know there's a trim band coming up. First thing I'll do is I'll take and I'll install a loop, as if I was finishing it off, and I'm not finishing it off. And I'll wrap that loop once or twice, like so, and then I'll install a second loop right next to the first one, and I'll wrap that one in a few times. So we got a couple of loops wrapped in there. Now I want to put a trim band in here. I need to get some silver thread. I used up my silver on the last one, so let me give me a second here to cut off a piece of silver. Unprepared. Okay, piece of silver cut off. I got a piece of silver at the ready. So now what we're going to do is as if we're finishing it off, we're going to cut the black, insert the black into the first loop that we installed, like so. In fact, in order to make sure we don't mess it up, which is what I did, let me pull that second loop out of the way. We're going to install this black thread into the first loop, as if we were getting ready to finish it off. Now we're going to take that piece of silver that we just cut, and we're going to put that into the same loop. So now in that first loop we have a piece of silver and we have the black to finish off, like so, and we just pull them up like such. Now the black one I'm going to trim back just a little, get rid of some excess, and I'm going to do the same with the silver. Trim that back just a little, and then I'm going to pull the loop through. Just like that. Okay, now to make the trim band, we go 1, we take the silver, we go 2 and 3. Take that silver thread for the trim band, put it into the second loop that we installed, snug that one up tight, get rid of our gaps, like so. Might give this a little bit of a pull just to tighten everything up. Okay, cut it back. Put your finger on it and jerk it through. Now we have got the trim band installed with no little black crossover, but what you do have is you've got these little tag ends that you got to trim off, and all I utilize is a razor blade to do that. So, and if you have a little excess left over, like that one there has, you can see there's, right there, there's just a little bit of, see if I can get it on the camera, it's hard to see. Right there you got just a little bit of fuzz sticking out right there. So what I'll do with that little piece of fuzz is I'll take a little pencil torch, and you don't even have to hardly touch it. You just get it close and it shrinks up and it goes away, and same with the other two that you just trimmed off. That's one way to get those trimmed off nice and close. But what you eventually end up with there is a trim band that doesn't have the black crossover. Now what you do end up with is a couple of little silver dots, because it's very, very difficult to make those go away. And the nice thing about black, and this only works with the black, is you can just take a Sharpie and you can dab a little Sharpie on there and those go away. But like I said, that only works with black. It doesn't do you a hill and beads good with any other color. That's the reason I don't like this one. That little black line there really just doesn't bother me. That's a good install without a black line. It's a little more time consuming to do, but it does have its downsides. So the third version, now we have to rerun our black. We've got to continue on so we can show you the third style. The third version is what I call the all thumbs version, because when I do it I kind of feel like I'm all thumbs. It's very awkward. It's very difficult for me to manipulate because I got kind of big fat fingers and it just doesn't work out for me so well. But we're going to give it a go here. So we know we're going to want to put a trim band up here somewhere. Let's just finish this off and say I want a trim band right there. Excuse me. Okay, now I want a trim band right there. The third version of this, and like I said, this is what I call the all thumbs version. This version you need to put in some kind of a holding device, i.e. a toothpick or a straw or really anything, and I'll show you why. You just take your device, whatever it is. This happens to be a piece of a zip tie, which works just fine. And you tape it to the rod as so. Then you take your piece of material, whatever it is going to be for your trim band, and you wrap it around that however many times, 2 or 3. In this instance I'm going to go 4 just because I think it makes it a whole lot easier to do. So what you do is you take this end and you stick it underneath the threads right alongside whatever your device is, your straw or your piece of zip tie. There's a little tunnel that's created there, and you take that and you pull that through like so. And then on the other side you do the same exact program. Let me try and get it so you can see it here. I don't want to get my fingers in the way of the lens. Same exact process. Stick the thread through the little tunnel created. Like so. And you pull those two ends tight. And then while you're pulling them tight, you can take and slide that trim band down to where you want it. Now when you're at this stage, you can take your little device out. Take and peel the tape back. Remove it. Like so. And I messed up because when I pulled my device out, I also pulled the thread out, but I can fix this. Give me just a second. This is why I call it the all thumbs version. Every time I try this, something goes wrong, and I just absolutely hate using this version. Some guys are really good at it, don't get me wrong. It's an effective way to make a trim band. I just really struggle with it, and like I said, I kind of feel like I'm all thumbs every time I try to do it because something always goes wrong. This case would be no exception to that rule. There. Okay, so now my trim band, still here. I still managed to keep it intact. Take and pull it down, get it all nice and tight up against the last row. Now what we've got to do is we got to finish these things off. So what I do is then I start running my thread again right over the top of those tag ends, like so. There you go. Get them all locked in there, like such. And let's snip some stuff back because it's getting a little bit in the way. So now I got my tag ends still from my trim band right here. And I use them to help pull this thread over. And that does two things. That keeps tension on my trim band, and it helps to move the thread over. There we go. That trim band is installed. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the more difficult ones. I'm just simply not agile enough personally. And it may work really well for you. It just does not work worth a hoot for me. But you get the same overall effect. Finish it off. We'll install a loop. Like so. And there it is. Trim bands installed. Now, so we've gone over 3 sets of trim bands. All of them gave us pretty much the same effect. This first version I showed you, downside, it gives you a little crossover there, and if that's something that bothers you, this isn't a good version for you. Second version, cumbersome. Third version, the all thumbs version, I'll let you judge for yourself. I don't like it. That's the one I like the least. But they all give you the same thing. They give you a trim band. So I hope that was helpful. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to cut these off, because this isn't for a customer or anything. This is just purely for demonstration purposes. Cut all this off. And now what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you something called an olive branch, which is a very classy and elegant way of trimming off your rods. I really like the overall effect. The guy who developed is named Jim Trelik, And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jim, if I'm not and you're seeing this video, I apologize. There's no disrespect intended. A little stain on my rod there. Okay, no worries. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start this off with a butt wrap. Got a little stain there, but I'm not worried about it because it's all going to get covered up anyway. Starting it off with a butt wrap. There we go. Let's remove the gaps as such. Clean off a little of the excess. All right. So now what we're going to do, take that piece of silver again, as it seems to contrast pretty well in the camera. Clip one off here for you. And we're going to insert that at this point right here. Okay, we've got it locked in. Let's clean off the excess. Give it a little tug just to get rid of the little end showing. A couple of more rolls, like so. There. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a trim band. 3 wraps. I like a 3 wrap trim band. It's enough to give you the desired effect, and yet it's not too much. It's not too much trim work. 3 seems like a really good number for trim bands. I've done single thread trim bands, and if you're looking for just a hint of an accent, that's really nice. Using my favorite version of a trim band, which is pretty much the only way I ever do trim bands. I use the all thumbs version of the trim band every once in a while when I forget to put one in and I've already cut and finished off the rod. So now I've got, what have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3 wraps of thread right there. So on the 4th wrap of the thread, I'm going to take the silver right here and I'm going to wrap it around the black once, and I'm going to rotate the rod a little bit, and I'm going to wrap it around again once, and I'm going to rotate the rod, and I'm going to wrap it around again, and I'm going to rotate the rod, and I'm going to do this all the way around the circumference of the rod blank. You can make these wraps as wide or as narrow or tight as you like. It's entirely up to you. It's all by feel, it's all by practice, and it's all by what you prefer to look at for a finished product. So there I've got the first row of olive branch. 2, 3. So I got 3 wraps there. I'm going to give it just a tug to tighten everything up. Give it one more. There's one more wrap. So now what I'm going to do, let's give it one more. Now I'm going to make another trim band. 1, 2, 3. All right, there we got our trim band in there. Get rid of the gaps. Two, 3, and I believe I did 4 on this last one, so to even it out, there's the 4th one. Now it's the same program. Wrap the thread around the silver around the black, and if you're careful, you can match the opposite side if you're just paying attention as to when you cross these things over, and you can try and get these to match up. And it takes some practice and it takes some patience, but you can get it. I did notice there's another YouTube video out there on how to do a Trelikes Olive Branch. I have not watched it. I don't know how good it is. I'm sure it's just fine, but I haven't seen it. I'm going to check his out and see what he had to do. All you're doing is twisting the silver around the black. Like so. Snip that off. And that's the end of it. I'm not gonna snip it, and well, I will snip it and do the finish. Just so I don't have to worry about back rolling on the thread. We'll just finish her off here. Trelikes Olive Branch. Simple, classy, sharp. It's not overbearing, and it just is a really, really nice look. The other thing you can do with this is you can utilize other colors. Here's a rod I did some while back, and you can see this has got a really nice contrast of colors in it. I used yellow on the black, and as you can see, there's an olive branch in there. And I also used a 1-strand trim band. All that does is just to give it some interest. Did this on a black rod. This happens to be a heavy action rod that I utilize for fishing for catfish and stuff like this. But in fact, you can see it's a little dusty. It's been on the shelf for a while. But you can see that olive branch is just really it's a classy way of doing it. And so you can do it with different colors. I've done it with red and blue, blue and white, red and white, red and yellow, any number of colors. So don't be afraid to mix it up and try some different stuff. One more thing that I'm going to show you, and this is so simple it's hardly worth mentioning, but I'll do it anyway just because it's kind of fun. I'm going to start off here. We're going to start off as if we're doing another wrap, and just a plain old finishing wrap or a butt wrap, just like any other one. So let's get a couple rolls going here. Cut off the tag like so. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of silver, and the only reason I'm using silver is because it shows up really, really well on the camera. Take a piece of silver, I'm going to insert it, wrap over it a few times, cut off the end, like so. Let me pack the threads. Okay. I'm not even going to bother trimming off the end there. So now what you do is you take this thread and you lay it right next to the black, and you roll the two on the rod together. This too takes some practice to get it to lay down correctly, but once you've done it a couple of times, it's really quite easy. So once you get it to the point where you're at the end of the silver thread, you just cross it underneath the black to lock it down. Then when you come back around to it again, bring it back over to the other side to finish it off. Trim it. And now what you've created is you've created a spiral silver trim. Again, simple, elegant, classy, however you want to call it. It's just a nice way to finish off your rod. And as long as I'm doing it, I'm going to do one more thing here that's going to be kind of neat. You notice how when you wrap your rod, the angle of your thread is such that it's going to pack the last row or the last thread up against the last sets, so you get a nice tight wrap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my carriage over here, and I'm going to put a different angle on it, and I'm going to intentionally put gaps in here and create a spiral pattern here. Again, just a very simple, easy way to add some interest to your rod. It's not fancy, it's not difficult, it's not even terribly original, but it's sometimes those little things that you forget about doing that really set your work apart from everybody else's. And it's such an easy thing to do, and as long as you got it in your hand, you might as well make this thing as different as you can. Everybody else has got a store-bought rod, and even some of the store-bought rods are doing this just to create some interest in their rods, to make them look a little different. And there, this is a done deal. Two different types of spirals. You got a two-color spiral right here. You've got a one-color spiral where you're just adding some gap space in between, simply by how you push your rod back and forth or how you control your carriage of threads. So here we've got trim band, Trelikes Olive Branch, trim band, olive branch. I should have put another trim band here, but in an effort to save a little time on tape, I stopped short because I wanted to show you these spirals, and I wanted to show you this spiral just so you could see how you could add some very simple and quite charming little touches to your rods. At any rate, that's going to conclude this one. I'm going to keep this one as short as I can. I appreciate you guys for watching. I hope you were able to get something out of this. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel. If you don't like my videos, please tell me what I can do differently so I can make some changes. I'll never know unless I get the criticism. So click like if you like, click don't like if you don't. Give me some constructive comments, subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And hope you guys enjoyed this. And for now, until next time, thank you.